All right, Tom Candiotti now on Rock and Nooch with Jimmy B. How you doing there, Candy? What's going on?
I'm just kind of hanging out in Denver, nothing else to do.
Oh man, you don't go. You don't go home and watch BP. You don't get there early and watch BP, Tommy. That's not your thing.
Well, BP hasn't started yet.
Oh, okay.
But I will be there for BP and all that stuff. But
Okay.
Up until that point, I'm just watching NFL live on TV.
Nice.
So Tom, you guys are hanging around the cage there in BP. What's the conversation? What's the mode like? These guys have won 6 out of 7, 7 out of the last 10. A little more loose, a little more relaxed, a little more confident. Kind of paint the vibe of what's going on these last few days.
Well, the times have changed. Used to be a point where you used to go down to the cage and, kind of talk and hang out and, just kind of BS with everybody. But
Yeah.
nowadays you're not allowed to go down there. So you can't even go to the cage unless you got an appointment, so we'll go into the locker room beforehand, and there's someone you want to talk to, you talk to them. Then you go into Torrey's office, and Torrey has his his little sit down with us, and we can ask him anything that's going on, and he'll volunteer information. Who's available, who's not available, who's what happened the night before, who's he going to use tonight out of the bullpen, just all those kind of questions.
How is it that you even have time to do that? Shouldn't you be playing 18 if you're up there in Denver? I mean, there's some great golf courses there. And I know you know a lot of people.
No, we played golf in Texas. It was great because there was a course, beautiful course that was attached to the hotel. So it was easy to play. But here in Denver, we were trying to get tee times, and everything is booked. So I don't know what's going on this weekend or what. I have no idea, but we couldn't get out. We couldn't get a place.
It's got to be the Arizona Cardinals preseason game there in Denver on Saturday night.
It's all about the Cardinals.
Maybe that
Cardinals
was it.
are coming in. Yeah, it's got to be it.
The funny thing with the Cardinals, so we flew in from Texas, and right at the airport, their plane was right there. And so we pull in, and I go, look at the difference of these planes, the plane we fly in and the plane they have. It's like twice as big as ours. It's great.
So, Tom, when you look at some of the things that have happened here, let's say the last week and a half, the one thing that stands out in my mind, and I just curious to see what Torrey had to say, was Perdomo leading off, Marte, Carroll, Gurriel. That formula seems to be sticking pretty good. Why the moving up of Perdomo to lead off? I could see Marte and Carroll, but why Perdomo as a lead off?
Well, I think there's two reasons. One of them, I think they're all interchangeable actually, but Perdomo is a guy that sees a lot of pitches, right? And, he can bomb it out. He can, he's a very talented hitter, but he usually has prolonged at bats, and that's important for a leadoff hitter because it makes the pitcher work a little bit, makes him throw some pitches so the guys that are hitting behind him can kind of see, kind of gauge what he's throwing, look up, see what the radar gun's saying, and all that other stuff. And then also with Corbin Carroll going down into the number 3 slot, Corbin, he doesn't really take his walks, right? He's a guy that likes to slug the ball, and that's what he's been doing. And so, yeah, he'll get some base hits here and there, but most of the time they're like doubles, triples, and home runs. And so if you get guys like Marte and Perdomo on, for him, Gurriel and Corbin are going to have field days. And the other thing that's really happening a lot with this lineup is Blaze Alexander and Alec Thomas out down towards the bottom of the order. Those guys are starting to put together good bats. And when all of a sudden you get some, bottom of the order production with guys getting on and it flips the lineup over, now you guys like Marte and Perdomo and Carroll, they're hitting with guys on base in RBI situations. And so the offense has been working really, really well that way. And I think a lot of it is just Perdomo. I think that was a great move, making him the leadoff guy.
Tom, you look at Carroll, you talk about Carroll hitting 248. Slugging percentage up, though, this year at 550. Are you giving up one to get to the other? You look at his numbers are down. Is he more into the slugging, as you mentioned, versus the average of putting ball in play? Is that kind of his role this year versus the last couple of years?
I still think he's trying to figure himself out as a hitter. Early on, the last couple of years, the guy could steal bases like crazy.
Sure.
He doesn't really run that much anymore. They really want to keep him healthy because his bat is so important. And it's so potent. He hits bombs out of there for just a little guy. I'd love to see him in a home run derby one of these times. But he's just not a guy that's going to get on base, hit the ball the other way. It's just not his style right now. And he still may be figuring out, what his style really is. But it certainly hasn't been running this year. I think what he had last year, like 50 stolen bases or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so, I think he's kind of slotting in and feeling pretty good about hitting in that third hole.
How's Erod feeling right now? He pitched really well last night. 7 really strong innings. But give up just one run, one walk. That
was nice. He kind of does it he's got 3 different fastballs, right? He's got his 4-seamer, his 2-seamer, and his cutter. And, when he's on with those, he's usually pretty good. When he's off with those, he's in trouble. And really with his changeup, he gets up a lot of slug with his changeup. And that's one pitch he throws it about 20% of the time. And, hitters hit it for high average and they slug it a lot. So he's really got to be on the edges with it. But when he has his fastball command and he's on the edges with those, the 3 different fastballs that he throws, he's pretty good. And let's not forget too, this Rocky team they're just looking for an identity right now. It'll be a big test for the Diamondbacks, after this series when you're starting to play, the Padres and you're starting to play, these Minnesota and or Milwaukee and LA and stuff. So it's going to be a little bit different. But, having said that, these are games you have to win, and they're doing whatever they can and to win, and they're doing it.
And Tom's, you look at the bullpen, and you look at Murillo getting his first save the other day, pitched well yesterday, only gave up the 1 hit. Beeks comes in, gives up the 2 hits. Okay. Is Beeks starting to earn that role? Is he moving up into that save/closer role even more so with his performance?
I think Torrey's just basically, looking at this really as a rehearsal for a lot of these guys. I don't think he really has defined roles down in the bullpen. I think he's slotting guys around who's ready to go and all that. You look down there and you go, you don't really have that go-to closer. He's trying to figure things out. It'd be great if he still had Jay Martin, he still had Puck, down there. What a difference, this bullpen would be. But you don't have those guys. And even Shelby Miller. And so you got to kind of do what you can with your talent you have. And he's moving them around just to see who can do what and who's comfortable doing what. And just really trying to mix and match. And the guys know it. And so they also are, no one's given up any games. They find themselves like kind of knocking on that 500, spot. And, once you get to 500, hopefully you can get there with a sweep in this series. That'd be great. And then kind of go from there and see what happens.
Candy, how interesting was it to watch Zach Gallen against Merrill Kelly the other night in Denver or in Texas?
It was interesting. Yeah. I play golf with those guys every year, at the Schwab. We always play together, and they're really best of friends. They don't live that far from each other. They're buddies. They're golf buddies. They've been in the rotation. They support each other. And, I've kind of been in that situation years before with Buddy Black. Used to be a really good buddy of mine. And then all of a sudden, you have to pitch against them. And, it was fun because in those days, pitchers could hit, so you're just hoping for a little, hey, put one down the middle for me, see if I could knock one out of here or something like that. But, you don't do that anymore. So they probably enjoyed the way it worked out, both getting no decisions on that and not having bragging rights over the other one, I'm guessing. But, sometimes it's hard pitching against guys that you're close with.
Well, and speaking of that Rangers series, I think sometimes, Candy, we don't realize the kind of power that Ketel Marte has from both sides of the plate. The bomb he hit, 440 on the right side. Then the next day hits 425 from the left side. You look at him, and I look at him like Mookie Betts. it's surprising how much power they both have. And until you see it on display, you realize that, damn, these guys got more power than they look like.
And especially could tell because when he comes up, I mean, he swings so hard. I mean, he lets it go, especially when he hits from the right side. And but we've seen him do it a few times with the left side also. He just has strong hands, strong wrists. He's just strong. And he's got such a good eye at the plate. And he's one of those rare guys that he's not vulnerable to any pitch or any zone in the strike zone. You really, as a pitcher, you've got to work to try to get him to try to chase the ball out of zone. So he's always getting a good pitch to hit. You never really see him like lunging out and trying to flick his wrist or something like that. He's usually locked in, and that's where that exit velocity really kind of comes in.
Tom, we always enjoy it, man. Thanks for making some time tonight, and we'll be listening later tonight. So thanks so much for the time.
All right, sounds good.
That's Tom Candiotti joining us from Denver, Colorado. Get ready for tonight's game. You'll be able to hear that on Arizona Sports. Tomorrow, you'll hear it right here on ESPN 620 and 98.7 HD2 as the Cardinals will be playing Denver on the mothership Arizona Sports. Again, you can hear both games on the Arizona Sports app. Tom is brought to you today by All City Towing, the largest towing company in the state here in Arizona, and a place where your career can get a serious boost. They're hiring all positions across the board, 401k with an employer match, paid life insurance, even a monthly fuel allowance. Does that sound good? Well, then take the next step. Visit allcitytowing.com. All City Towing, where your future is on the move. Well, the biggest story isn't the NFL today. It's in Ann Arbor. Plus, Oklahoma's quarterback gets caught up in Venmo Gate. And then how about Tennessee ditching Nike? We'll get into some of those college football stories next, right here on Rock Minutia with Jimmy B on ESPN 620, live from Wright Toyota.